Hey Flosstube friends! My name is Lynn and this is my channel Those Missing Stitches where I talk all about cross stitch and a little bit about reading at the end. Today is Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024, and this is my Flosstube number 22. Welcome and thank you for joining me. Happy fall officially to everyone. It's my favorite season. If you watched my last video, you know that, and I had a lot of comments about fall and what other people liked about it, and some that didn't like it. It's not their favorite season and they're going to miss summer or winter. Um, but thank you everyone that did make comments. I had a bunch of giveaways from the last video that I will announce at the end of the cross stitch section, all the winners from that last video on this video. So stay tuned if you did enter comments on that. I will let you know if you won at the end of the cross stitch section. The rest of today, I do have some Flosstuber shout outs that I want to talk about people I've been watching recently. It is a new quarter of the year, so I do have a few new fabric colors that are in my shop I'm going to show you real quick. And then I have all my whip updates and my cross stitch updates for what I worked on in September. I have a couple of patterns in a haul, a mini haul section, just a few patterns that I picked up, and I'll show you that. And then I'll go through the giveaway winners, tell you everyone that won everything that I had announced on my last video. And at the very, very, very end, I will talk about books that I read in September. If that interests you, you're welcome to stick around. So first of all, let me talk about the Flosstube shout out. So I have been watching In Stitches with Ebony, and I will link everybody that I talk about down below. So what I've appreciated about this channel is that she has a lot of full coverage cross stitch. So if you're a full coverage cross stitcher, that's a good one to go check out. She's doing frequent updates, so I love to see all her progress on all the different full coverage pieces. I also want to shout out to Tara Sullivan. She goes by Sully Stitches, but I think her actual channel is under Tara Sullivan. Um, she had an update a couple weeks ago that was a designer spotlight for the Prairie School and Prairie Schooler, and she showed so many Halloween finishes. I watched it like 3 times. I loved it, and I wanted to do all of them. Um, so go check her out. She has a lot of designer spotlight stuff where she goes through patterns that she has from that particular designer, and then things that she's stitched on it as well. So really love watching her channel. And then the last one I want to shout out to was Homemade on the Ridge. She's brand new to Flosstube, lots of Halloween stuff in her first video, and she's also a scrapbooker. So I was a little giddy to see all of the Allie Edwards stuff behind her in her video and be familiar with what that stuff is. If you're a scrapbooker, you may know too. So go check out any of these. I will link them down below if that's something that you're interested in. And then real quick, let's move on. I'm going to go through the new fabric colors. Let's do business real quick. I have 4 new fabric colors for the new quarter that are in my Etsy shop. I have that link down below as well. Kind of fall colors that I wanted to get into, 2 neutrals and then a couple of jewel tones. So the first one is Cavalier Catherine. It's a brownish, kind of darker brown. This is the Ada, and it's named after Catherine Earnshaw from Wuthering Heights. And its closest colors are DMC 07 and 08. This is the Ada, and then here's the linen. Not quite as not quite as drastic in the modeling as it's showing on the video. It's a little more subtle, but that's probably, and maybe a little lighter than what it's showing on the video. Can't quite get the right color. And then here's the Lugana, which is a lot more muted and a lot more of the like green kind of pops out on it. Okay. Next is Notable Nick. This is after Nick Carraway from The Great Gatsby. The closest DMC colors. It's a little lighter than it's showing on there and maybe a little more tannish. It's not quite as brown as it's showing on the color. It's a little more yellow than that. Maybe even a little greener. Um, closest colors are DMC 06 and 07. So this is an interesting one because it came out so different, not so different, but enough difference that it's a different hue on the linen versus the Ada versus the Lugana. So here's the linen, which does have a little bit more of the brown than the yellow. And then here's the Lugana, which is almost like a gold color. So they're all 3 different, all in the same batch, but very different hues, just how it comes out on that fabric. All gorgeous, but just interesting to see them side by side. Okay, now for the colors. This one is perfect for Halloween and fall stitching. I wanted to get a deep dark orange, and that's what I got in Genial Ginny, after Ginny Weasley from the Harry Potter series. That is actually a pretty good representation and showing on the video. The closest DMC colors are DMC 922 and 920. However, so here's the Ada, and then here's the linen, which are very close, very similar, match that DMC pretty closely. And then here's the Lugana, which came out like almost more peachy. I would say this is closer to DMC 402. So just as a comparison, here's the linen, which was kind of the darker orange that I was going for, and then here's the Lugana. So very different. Still orange, but just a lot lighter and doesn't show very much modeling at all. And last but not least, Gifted Grace. This is an emerald tone that's closely related to DMC 3816 and 3817. Maybe even a little darker on this than the 3817, but that's probably the closest. That is the Ada. And then here's the linen, which brings out a little bit more blue than the emerald green does on the than it's emeraldy on the Ada, just a little bit, but fairly close. And then Lugana, which is much more muted, but still very beautiful. Okay, so that is it for the new colors. All available in my shop if you're interested. They'll be here all through the end of the year. Okay, business done. Now let's get into my cross stitch updates. So everything I worked on in September, I worked on a total of 11 projects for 21,311 stitches, and I did have 2 new starts and of course no finishes, which is very common for me. So let's go through my new starts. My first new start is Nevermore by the Prairie Schooler. I started this one on 25 count, one of the new colors in my shop, Cavalier Catherine, 25 count Lugana, and I'm stitching it 1/1 full cross. I was already watching Tara Sullivan's Prairie Schooler stuff and thinking about really wanting to start Nevermore, and then Angie Sawyer brought it to our recent cross stitch meetup, and she had it finished on the, or not finished, I think she was close to finished on this light brown fabric, and I started the next day. I needed to do it. So I did start, and I did a total of 1,232 stitches on it, and here's where I'm at. I'll go a little closer so you can see how it's coming out on that brown. I love how it's coming out on this. So this is where that bat is the halfway point for the length of it. So, or the width of it. So it's not too overwhelming. I think it's something I can probably, well, I don't want to commit myself, but maybe finish before next Halloween. Let's give me that goal. Okay, love working on that one when I can see it. My next new start. So I finished Tonight We Ride in June by Autumn Lane Stitchery and really knew that I wanted to start another Autumn Lane Stitchery for this fall season. I got the Halloween box last year, and this was in the Halloween box. It's Witch's Hollow by Autumn Lane Stitchery. I knew as soon as I finished Tonight We Ride that I'd probably start another Autumn Lane Stitchery, so this is my start. Also on one of my newer fabrics. This is on, I started on 20 count, Genial Jenny, which is the new orange color in my shop. This one, it's not a full coverage. You actually do see anything that's orange in the picture is the fabric actually showing through. So I wanted to have an orange fabric, and this one worked out perfect. So I did a total of 906 stitches. I'm doing 2/1 full cross with the called for DMC. And here's where I'm at. I started at the bottom because I really wanted to see how this orange color was going to show through on the stitches, and it looks really good. I'm excited to get into the white and the purples because I think it looks really good against the purple as well. So not a ton on that, but at least gives you an idea of how that's going to look on that new fabric color. Here's the close up. That's a little more muted. It's definitely a brighter orange, or not bright, but like a darker orange than what it's showing. More like, maybe even a little darker than that. Yeah, more like that. Okay, next I'll talk about my monthly goals. I have certain pieces that I work on that I want to get to a certain point by a certain date. So I have goals that I work on or try to every month, not always successful. My first one is 324 by Works by ABC. This one I'm working on as part of the 324 Sal that is hosted by Abby at Top Notch Stitcher. My goal is to average about 1 square a day. I don't work on it daily, but average about 1 square a day so that I can have it finished within less than a year, so 324 days. And I am on target so far. I worked on this a total of I worked on it 2 days for a total of 660 stitches. I'm now at 50.67%, so I'm definitely on target for finishing it before the year is up. I'm stitching this one on 25 count silvery moon Lugana, 1/1 full cross. Here's where I was the last time I showed this. And with the additional 660 stitches, here's where I am now. Got a few more down in that corner, working my way across, trying to finish that section, and then I'll probably move to the left. I actually think I might only have one or two more rows to, no, I have a few more rows to go, I think. Here's a close up. But that is the full width. I love how pretty these colors are coming out. It's just a matter of my eyesight. These are easier to work on in a day because my eyesight fluctuates, and doing the 1/1 full cross on 25 count is a little easier to see during the day. So typically something I pull out on a weekend. Okay, next monthly goal is on Saga by Long Dog Samplers. I started this one as part of the Long Dog Leap Year Sal or Long Dog Leap Day Sal. I think they go by either one. And the idea was to start it on Leap Day and try to finish it by the next Leap Day 4 years later. And in order to do that, I have to do, I think, 2,165 stitches per month. I am on target for where I need to be as of this point. I did not do that many stitches last month, but I'm still on target in total. Here's where I was in the last video when I showed this. In September, I stitched 1,946, so just shy of what my monthly goal is. In total, I'm at 15,773, which is on target for 15.17%. I'm stitching this one on 20 count Lugana in the color sensitive Sylvie, which is a color that from my shop. And then here is where I am now. I'm going to show you, let me just show you the section I've been working on, focusing on, getting those arches in that second row filled in. But I'll also, let me open it up and show you the whole thing from where I'm at in total. It's very big, and I still have a long way to go, but I love how it's coming out. Let's see, let me do this side. I have two different colors, DMC 930 and 931. Right now, I think I'm just working on the 930 to get the arches done, and then I'll decide what I want to fill in which color later. Okay. Then, last for my monthly goals is a Grand Library Max Color. This artist is Amy Stewart, and it's charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. I am stitching this one on 18 count, Easy Guide Lugana, 2/1 full cross. I have a goal of, I think, 2,300 stitches or something per month. Definitely didn't meet that. Haven't met it all year. I'm definitely not going to beat the goal on this one. But that's okay. I'm still making progress. So I'm happy to see progress on it. It's just going to take me a lot longer than I thought. So in September, here's where I was the last time I showed this. I am starting to work on the fireplace section. So I moved over a little bit to start on a new section. And I did a total of what did I do? 1,436 stitches. And in total, I'm at 206,676 stitches for 51.32%. So here's where I'm at now. Getting that fireplace filled in. Getting the top of the chair, I think, is over here. Oh, lots of orange and red, very fall colors. So excited, like filling that in for now. Now for my other projects that are not necessarily monthly goals, I just pulled them out for fun. This one is All Hallows Eve by Joan Elliott Designs. I'm stitching this one on 25 count Brave Boromir, which is a color from my shop, 1/1 full cross with the call for DMC. Here's where I was the last time I showed this. And I didn't do a ton. I just worked on it for one day and I did an additional 252 stitches. I think here's where I'm at now. I just filled in a little bit more of the witch's hat and the birds over by the witch. And I originally had her hand, you can see I had to frog it. I had a little bit of her hand already completed and I was off, so I had to frog it back out. So I did do more stitches than that, but they're gone now. So back to the drawing board. But great. Love working on this because of Halloween season. I think I have a Joan Elliott in rotation pretty much all year round. Just depends on the season and what I work on. Okay, next is Black Vintage Black Vintage Sampler. This is by Owl Forest Embroidery. I'm stitching this one on an 18 count piece of fabric that I dyed myself. Just threw some colors together so I couldn't recreate it if I tried. Um, Here's where I was the last time I showed this. I am stitching this one 2/1 full cross with Silks for You PR 070, which is their black. Um, in September, I did a total of 728 additional stitches. So here is where I'm at now. Got a little bit more, finished off that clock, and then the rest of the border near the clock and underneath where the clock is. So that is Black Vintage Sampler. Okay, next is Busy Hands, Happy Heart. This is by Hello from Liz Matthews. It was a Patreon exclusive up through, I think, the middle of August, so I'm not entirely sure when she's going to release it in her shop. I know it's exclusive for a little while, so it's not available right now, but I'm sure it will be released in her shop eventually. I am stitching this one on 20 count Devoted Dobbin, which is a color from my shop as well. I'm doing 2/1 full cross with DMC Blanc, I believe. I think so. No, B5200, which are similar. Here's where I was the last time I showed this. I did an additional 1,269 stitches. So in total, right now, I'm at 3,345 stitches for 43.17%. Here's where I am now. I finished that whole top section, and then I'll be able to move on to the middle where the border in the saying is, and then the bottom section is just a mirror of what's in the top section. I did mess up in two places, but it's all a mirror. So I just had to fib it on the other side, and I'll have to fib it on both sides on the bottom as well. It's gonna work. It's gonna be fine. I'm just over, I think I'm over one too many stitches on each side, so two in total. Here's close up. Open it up. This is like, it's not gonna be huge. This is 40%, so excited to get through that one and maybe have a finish eventually. Okay, this one has been addicting. This is Halloween Sampler from Cressetta Go-Go. I am stitching this one on 18 count Poetic Pony Boy, which is a color of from my shop. I'm stitching it 2/1 full cross with the color called for DMC. Here's where I was the last time I showed this. And in September, I worked on this for 13 days for 7,302 stitches. I am now at 11,017 in total, just shy of 40% at 39.28. And here's where I'm at now. Sorry about the wrinkles, just pulled it out of the Q-snap. But working on that house now. Here's a little closer. You can see it's kind of a light gray inside the house. So it's just filling now. I've got almost all of this right like top quarter quadrant done. At least above like where the flowers are in the fencing. Very, very close to done with this top quarter. And then I'll be able to move on to another, probably finish off the left and then work my way down, which is a part that I'm really excited to get to. So making a lot of progress on that. This is very addicting. I love how it's coming out. So that is Halloween Sampler. Okay, next is Pride and Prejudice. This is by Lena Ova. I'm stitching this one without the border. I am stitching it on 20 count Ernest Emma, which is a color from my shop, in a Silks for You, but I don't remember the number. I want to say either PR 065 or 069. It's one of those colors. Um, so Here's where I was the last time I showed this. In September, I did an additional 570 stitches. Now in total, I'm at 9,616 stitches for 44.57% of the portion that I'm doing. That does not include the outer border. So here's where I am now. I finished off a little bit of like down in, I think the rest of Darcy's body, and then beside him, and maybe in between. So not a ton, but making a little progress on that. I'm almost done with that, basically that whole half of the pattern, and then I can move on to the other half. Okay, last but not least is my one full coverage that I have to, well, second full coverage that I have to show for this month. This is My Golden Path. The artist is Adrienne Borda and is charted by Unconventional Cross Stitch. I'm stitching this one on 28 count Easy Guide Lugana, 2/1 10 stitch or half cross. Here's where I was the last time I showed this. I just started this, I think, last month, so haven't worked on it. Haven't had a ton of time to work on it, but I've made a good amount of progress for only starting it last month. In September, I did an additional 5,010 stitches, and in total, I'm at 12,080 for 5.36%. I initially thought I was gonna like finish the column in black that I was already working on, and then maybe move on to a different color. I went a little further with the black than I thought I would, but then I just got tired of doing black, so then I picked a color. So here's where I'm at now. Started working on some of the blue. Let me put this up. So here's some of the blue that I started working on across her face, because this does go across the whole pattern, so I think it'll give me something to anchor against. But I did end up continuing the black like way down here. And then got into this big lump down in the middle here and just got a little tired of black. So I wanted to move on and do a little color. Got a little color in there. So enjoying seeing some color. And then maybe I'll switch back. We'll see. But enjoying working on this one. It's a nice one to pick up when I just want to do some half cross. And still love that artwork and love the meaning of this art. Okay. So that is actually the last of my cross stitch updates. Now I want to talk about haul. I just purchased a couple of patterns this month, so I wanted to show them. I did purchase Trick or Treat by the Tiny Modernist. This was a recent release. And of course, I love everything Halloween, so I will probably start it this month. Just have to decide what fabric to do it on and if I have the time. I also picked up Happy Halloween by Cressetta Gogo, another one that I really love by them. What I'm thinking of is maybe doing, not necessarily doing it as one big piece, but maybe doing a couple of the motifs. There's a couple of them that I like, that I really like, and I thought would be really cute small. So I might do a motif or two and not do the whole piece put together. And then the final one that I purchased is Monster Movie Night by Lola Crow. This is actually a charity fundraiser that she did for a charity called Room to Read. It's they help with literacy and developing reading habits for young uh, for the youth, especially in low income areas. So it's a charity that I felt strongly with my love of reading. I was happy to donate to, and you get the bonus of getting this pattern. I don't know if it's anything I'll ever stitch, but I was just happy to donate to the charity. So I will link all this stuff down below if that's something you're interested in checking out as well. And now for the giveaway winners, what everybody's been waiting for. So I had several patterns that I talked about in my last video, and then I have a piece of fabric from my shop that I'm giving away. So I will go through them. So first, grab these. We had Away We Ride by Blackbird Designs. And the winner of this one was Roxanne Green 5722. So anybody that I am announcing that you are the winner of the prize, please email me at thosemissingstitches@gmail.com with your mailing, with your name and your mailing address. And let me know what it is that you won, and I will get it out in the mail to you. Next was Welcome Halloween by the Drawn Thread. These are all things I've already finished, so I'm just passing on the pattern to someone else that might want them. So Welcome Halloween by the Drawn Thread. The winner of that one is Flossie Sews and Grows. So Flossie Sews and Grows, if you could email me, I will pass that pattern on to you. Next is Trick or Treat by The Drawn Thread, also one that I finished. And the winner of this one was Ben May Stitches. So if you could reach out to me and let me know your address, I'll send that on to you. The next two patterns that I highlighted were from Shelley at Antique Needleworkers. The first one is Delia Conger Sampler. This is a PDF, so it will be emailed to you. So you just have to email me and let me know what email you want that sent to. The winner of this one is A Life in Stitches. If you could reach out to me at thosemissingstitches@gmail.com, let me know what email you want that sent to. I will ask Shelley to get that out to you. The next pattern was Be Ye Kind, a mini. And the winner of that one is, and I apologize if I say this wrong, this is just reading it directly, Jaron Jans 9476. So if you could reach out to me and let me know your email address, I'll get that one out to you. And last but not least, a piece of fabric from my shop, any quarter yard cut that you would like in any color, any fabric count. I will send it off to you. The winner of that one is Jane T. Cross Stitch. So Jane T. Cross Stitch, if you could reach out to me with what fabric you would like and what count and what your mailing address is, I will get that out to you. So this is actually the end of my cross stitch section of my video. I'm going to talk about books next, so if that's not something that you're interested in, thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you next time. Okay, if you are sticking around, let's talk books. I did read 6 books in September, so let me run through them real quickly. The first one is Starling House by Alex E. Harlow. This takes place in a small town, and there's this mysterious house that's always been like rumored about. Is it haunted? Is it like there's these strange people that are caretakers that turn over, and somebody new just shows up and becomes a new caretaker? It's been years and years that this has been going on, and nobody really knows who lives there other than seeing them occasionally, and then what is going on with the house. So the main character, Opal, she like her whole life has had dreams about this house and been kind of drawn to this house and wants to know more about it. So there's definitely some sort of force and like otherworldly thing going on there. It was very, very, very supernatural and kind of magic based premise. For me, the other like once I got towards the end and actually got to answering some of the stuff that's going on the house with the house, it was a little too over the top with some of it for me, but I definitely was hooked and wanted to know what was going on with this house. And I really liked the premise at the end. It was a little Inception like, if you've seen the movie Inception. It was just a little too much supernatural um, to kind of release that suspension of disbelief for me. But I did like it. I mean, I definitely want to know what was going on with the house, just not one of my favorites. I'll say that. Okay, next was one of my favorites, The Life Impossible by Matt Haig. I'm a big fan of Matt Haig. I love, love, love The Midnight Library. So when I saw that he was released, this was a new release, I think that just came out a couple weeks ago. I pre ordered it and it showed up on my Kindle and I started reading it right away. There's a very sweet, very lonely, older character in Grace. He's the main character, and Grace is the one that I named the Gifted Grace, like emerald tone fabric that I have out this month after her. She's retired and she is very lonely. She's lost everyone in her family. She's pretty much just going through the motions of life with really no joy. She's a retired math teacher, and she's very analytical and very scientific and very straightforward. And this is just the way things are. And she gets bequeathed a house in another country in Ibiza by a former coworker that she barely knew, but she decides she's going to go check it out and see if she just wants to sell it, what it's about. She's going to check out Ibiza. She doesn't typically leave the house. Like, this is a whole different side of her and a different adventure. So the story evolves and it gets much deeper into, especially for her, like challenging everything she thinks she knows about the world and science and how close minded she's been to other possibilities out there. So it is a little bit of sci fi, and there's definitely a point to the premise of keeping an open mind to possibilities, even for the reader. So as the as Grace is going through this, you need to keep an open mind as the reader as well. Um, I did love the premise, especially as someone myself who's very mathematical and scientific in how I look at the world. It did challenge me in my thinking that maybe we don't know everything and maybe there is something else out there and maybe we can think outside of the box and there are other possibilities. Um, I did think it was a great book, and I still really love Matt Haig and would recommend him. Didn't love it as much as The Midnight Library, but it was very good, and I will continue to read him. The next book I read was The Love of Her Lives by C.J. Connolly. Very similar premise to The Midnight Library, um, with kind of what would happen to the trajectory of your life if even very minor changes were made to something in your past. So like say a friend in this particular book, like say a friend misses a flight and it changes the trajectory of your life because she comes back and talks to you or something. Um, or someone you briefly met at a party that left decides not to leave and you get to know each other a little better. Or say you take a gap year instead of going straight to college or vice versa. So so on and so on, like the butterfly effect idea has always really fascinated me if it's done right, how the smallest actions and decisions can change your entire life. So the premise of this book is like, do you like an opportunity to go through some of that? So given the choice, do you continue to uh, try to change things and find the trajectory that makes this like your dream life and all those things, like all your dreams come true and everything's great? Or so you think. Is it not as great as you thought it was going to be, or just even though all those things you thought were going to be great happen? Or do you try to go back to what it is that you know and what you're comfortable with, and kind of that push and pull of what fits for you in your life? So I did love, I love these kinds of books that explore that kind of premise and that they do it right, because there's so many that can do it wrong, as far as any sort of changing the past or looking how things affect the future. I think it did do a pretty good job, and I think this was they did do a good job with it. So it was interesting to see all these different, just very minor things and trying to figure out what minor thing actually changed all these other things in her life as she goes through these different premises. So this was a good one. Next, I read Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I love this book. This is a married couple. The premise is a married couple who has divorced after a major or two major tragedies that happened in their lives. And although they still really have a lot of love for each other, they went in really completely opposite directions in their grief, and they hold a lot of resentments for themselves and towards each other for how they dealt with their grief or didn't deal with it. So they still share kids and they still share a business, and so they still have to work together and make things work, even though their marriage didn't work. And it's really just exploring a lot about healing and that needs to happen personally before you can be there for somebody else or good for anybody else or consider healing a relationship or anything like that. So there's really a lot of deep exploration about feelings and guilt and grief and loss and self-worth and all of this. And it's a great example of growth and roadblocks and challenges that can inhibit growth. And I really loved the group of girlfriends, that and their banter with each other and how fiercely they have each other's backs. The author does continue, um, the stories of the two girlfriends of the main character Yasmin into a series. So I read the second one in the series next, and was really happy to see that the characters are continued. So definitely recommend Before I Let Go. Now I've moved on. The second book is This Could Be Us, also by Kennedy Ryan. This continues the story of Soledad, which is one of the friends of Yasmin's from Before I Let Go. We get a little bit of Soledad's story in Before I Let Go, and the idea that there's definitely not, she's not in a happy marriage, something is going on with her marriage, but they don't go really deep into it. But very, very early in this book, we hear more about it, and then we get like this really significant crisis that happens. And Soledad suddenly finds herself, supporting her three kids and trying to live a life and um, take care of herself and her kids and having to have a job after never working before because she got married right out of college. So she's at this crossroads of heartbreak and completely having to rearrange her life, including, working and taking care of the kids and all this stuff she's never had to do before. So there's another exploration into self discovery and working on healing yourself first before you can move on to anything else or any new relationship. But there definitely is this presence of wanting a new relationship because there's this guy that's been here the whole time. So there are some challenges to that with this guy being introduced to her and this romance and kind of challenging her timeline of her healing, but stepping back and letting her heal, but really wanting to be with her. It was a good book. I definitely, um, let's see, it, I definitely didn't like it as much as Before I Let Go, but I think because I could relate a little more with Yasmin and the grief and the loss more so than I could relate with Soledad and like the betrayal part of that book. Not for any other reason. Both of them had were definitely spicy. They had some spicy scenes, they had some romance, but really just focused more on healing and self discovery and really, really, really strong female characters. So that's what I could appreciate about both of them. Haven't moved on to the third book yet, but there is one more for the final girlfriend of all the characters. Again, really explored more of the girlfriend characters in the second book, and love how they just made me laugh out loud a couple of times how fun they are with each other. Okay, for my last book, I read Make It Sweet by Kristen Callahan. There is the female main character of Emma and the male main character of Lucian. Right out of the gate, the beginning of the book, they both basically have things happen that they lose their careers and they lose their partners. And they both find themselves going to this kind of retreat compound in LA. Um, there's the home of Lucian's grandmother, but Lucian's grandmother is also a friend of Emma's grandmother. There's some sort of connection that she gets recommended to go to this house where he's already staying, just to kind of decompress while she figures out what she wants to do. So Lucian is very closed off and angry, and Emma tries to challenge some of that. Um, so there's a lot of back and forth of like trying to figure out what they want to do with their careers, feeling very hurt, and especially in Lucian's case where he was he played hockey, so he was a major sports player, and he's injured and can't actually play anymore. So a lot of how careers can define you and even get in like you think your career goals do define you or even they're your entire passion and how much you put the rest of your life on hold for what you think your passion is even when it doesn't bring you joy anymore. um, but just because you have this goal in mind that I need to do this and this was my goal and like I will be happy if I can get back to this might close you off to other opportunities, and I think that's kind of the point of the relationship and them getting to know each other. What I really liked about this book was his second, like, as a hobby or as something he turns to that does bring him joy, he likes to cook. So that's where the Make It Sweet title comes from. Is he's a pastry chef. He learned how to be a pastry. His like great grandfather or his grandfather, I forget who exactly it was. I think his grandfather was a famous pastry chef and taught him how to actually cook and make desserts, and he's very good at it and often correlates like some of the ingredients he's using or what he's making with whatever is kind of going on with the story. It correlates with how he's feeling and stuff like that and kind of puts that emotion into that cooking, and that's something I can relate with. I love to bake, so I really enjoyed that part of the story and how delicious everything sounded. Now I want to make everything. um, but definitely like it worked into um, it's a romance and there's definitely a lot of challenges and things of like how choices can change and how your passions can change and how long does it take you to realize that and what do you put on hold while you try to realize that. So this is an interesting one. I think it's a good, cute one for like a quick romance read. Um, so that was an interesting one. I think I might recommend it, leaning more towards might. Okay, so that was it. That's all, folks. Thank you for joining me and sticking around. If you did stick around for the book section and made it this far, I hope to see you next time, and I hope you have a fantastic October and a happy Halloween if that's something that you celebrate. Bye.